You'd think after 20 years in crisis zones, I could handle one dinner with my family. I was wrong. My name is Rachel Elwin. I'm 38 years old, and I live in Portland now, though I spent most of my adult life hopping from one global disaster site to another. Earthquakes, floods, wildfires, you name it, I've been there. I used to coordinate field operations for the UN's Environmental Response Team. I've evacuated entire villages, rebuilt floodplain systems, and yes, even gotten dengue twice. So you'd think sitting through a family celebration dinner wouldn't faze me. It started with a text from my mother. Megan's big promotion, dinner Friday 7 p.m., formal attire. Hope you can make it. That was it. No address, no details, no warmth. Just the assumption that I'd come running. I almost didn't go. They hadn't invited me to anything in years. Not since I left the family business, my dad's luxury architecture firm. But I went. Mostly out of curiosity. The venue was absurd. A private rooftop lounge in downtown Seattle, the kind of place with floor-to-ceiling windows and waiters who pretend not to judge you. Everyone was already there when I arrived. My father in his usual navy suit, Megan glowing in a champagne-colored dress, and a crowd of colleagues, extended family, and sycophants, orbiting around her like she was the moon. I smiled politely, made my way toward the group. No one looked up. My mom handed me a place card, Rachel Elwin, and pointed vaguely toward the far end of the room. My table was near the service doors, halfway between the bar and the bathrooms. I sat down, smoothed my black dress, and reminded myself to breathe. The speeches started. Megan's boss talked about her vision and execution. My father raised his glass and said, "To Megan, who builds legacies, and to those who support from the shadows." There were chuckles, then silence. I sipped my water. They didn't ask what I'd been doing the last 6 years. They didn't mention the Quadra fault collapse or the South Sudan relocation effort. When someone asked what I did for work, my dad chimed in with, "Oh, Rachel's still traveling, right? Living out of a duffel bag." The waiter refilled my water. I nodded a thank you. And then, halfway through dessert, it happened. The elevator doors opened, and in walked Ambassador Surov. UN blue badge, pressed charcoal suit. Conversations stalled. Heads turned. He scanned the room once, then made a beeline for my table. "Director Elwin," he said, extending a hand. "I didn't know you'd be in town. We're honored you could join us." He said it loud enough for the room to hear. You could feel the temperature shift. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. My father's mouth froze around a bite of cake. Megan blinked, then forced a smile. I stood, shook his hand. "Ambassador," I said calmly, "always a pleasure." He smiled. "We still talk about the Quadra evacuation. Extraordinary leadership." Then he nodded once, to me, and only me, and walked away. For the rest of the evening, people glanced at me differently. A few came by to say hello. Megan introduced me to someone from her firm. My sister Rachel, she does international stuff. But it was too late. The spell had broken. I didn't stay long. I thanked the hostess, hugged my mom stiffly, and slipped out before the valet line got long. In the car, I let myself breathe. It was the first time in years anyone in that room had said my name with respect. It didn't make up for everything, but it was something. It had been over a year since I stepped foot in my parents' house. The last time, I came straight from a flight in Kathmandu, still half jet-lagged and smelling like campfire and hand sanitizer. No one asked where I'd been. No one cared. But now I was back, invited technically, though it felt more like an obligation than a welcome. My father was hosting a small family gathering, which meant a catered lunch, overpriced wine, and lots of polite conversation about things that didn't matter. Megan was already there when I arrived, holding court in the living room like she owned the place. Her real estate firm had just won some award, something about innovation in sustainable suburban planning. I worked on literal climate collapse, but sure, suburban planning. "Rachel," she called when she saw me, air kissing my cheek like we hadn't spoken since the dinner. "So glad you could come. Dad wasn't sure if you'd be in the country." "Just got back from the Balkans," I said. Landslide response. She blinked. "Oh, wow, well, that's important." I didn't bother explaining. Instead, I took the seat that had been clearly saved for me, next to the buffet table, not with the others. Not near the fireplace where my parents always sat, surrounded by framed memories and warm lighting. My chair wobbled slightly every time someone walked past to grab crackers. The house looked the same as it did when I was a teenager. mahogany floors, soft piano music playing from invisible speakers. But there was one new addition, a photo wall. Dozens of carefully arranged frames stretching across the back hallway. I walked over, curious. Megan's face was everywhere. Her first home purchase, her ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Tacoma condo project, her engagement photos, Mom smiling at a gala, Dad breaking ground on his museum project. Not one photo of me, not one. I looked closer. Nothing from the Sierra floods, nothing from the Quadra Fault evacuation, not even the blurry snapshot of me accepting the Regional Crisis Medal 2 years ago. I turned to my mother, who was rearranging cheese cubes on a tray like it was a surgical procedure. "Hey," I said quietly, "I noticed there aren't any photos of my work up." She didn't look up. "Oh, well, we didn't have anything high resolution." I stared at her. "That's the reason?" She shrugged. "You're always in helmets or dust masks, and the lighting is usually so bad. It doesn't fit the aesthetic." I bit my tongue. "Besides," she added, "you never send us anything framed." "Because I didn't think I had to. Because I assumed they'd be proud on their own." "I'll keep that in mind," I said. Back in the living room, Megan was showing off a drone video of her latest build. Dad beamed, offering wine refills to the cousins clustered around her iPad. I sat quietly in my corner. Then, just as I was wondering if anyone would notice if I left, a man approached me. Older, gray hair, tan blazer. He looked vaguely familiar. "Rachel Elwyn?" he asked. "That's me." He smiled. "Dr. James Keller. Geologist. Retired now. I used to consult with the UN's environmental unit. You probably don't remember, but we crossed paths during the Quadra crisis." I blinked. "You were on the remote sensor team." "That's right," he said. "I was the one who kept yelling about soil saturation curves." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time all day. "I remember," I said. "You were right. We pulled the third zone evacuation based on your projections." He nodded. "And saved 2 villages doing it. You coordinated that whole thing. Never seen anything like it." I felt my cheeks flush. "I just did what had to be done." "No," he said firmly. "You did what most people couldn't. Don't let anyone forget that." It was quiet between us for a moment. Then he looked toward the photo wall and frowned slightly. "You know," he said, "you should be on that wall too." I didn't reply, just offered a tired smile. After he left, I poured myself a glass of seltzer and sat by the window. Megan was still the star. My parents still saw me as the odd one out, the one who left, the one who didn't wear heels or foundation or care about throwing the right kind of dinner party. But at least one person in that room remembered what I had done. And for a few minutes, that was enough. The next morning, I woke early, couldn't sleep. Maybe it was the jet lag, or the stiff guest mattress, or the silence of a house that never quite felt like home. My parents were still asleep. Megan had stayed the night too. Her Lexus was parked perfectly aligned in the driveway, like everything she touched. I padded into the living room, still in the oversized UN hoodie I traveled in. The photo wall stared back at me, dozens of moments captured in glossy, symmetrical rectangles. I stood there for a while, letting my eyes scan from one curated image to another. Then I noticed something. One section of the wall was too clean. A square patch, just to the right of the fireplace, where the paint was brighter than the rest. No dust, no smudges. A missing frame. I walked over, leaned in. Yep, there were tiny nail holes, barely visible. Something had been removed, recently. A knot formed in my stomach. I started checking drawers, the kind my mom always labeled with hand-cut paper tags. Candles, napkins, odds plus ends. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but I found it in the last one near the hallway. A simple black frame, with the glass still intact. But the photo inside, it was a stock image. A white family on a mountain hike, the kind that came preloaded in discount frames. I pulled it out. Behind it, tucked at the back of the frame, was a crease-marked printout of me. I recognized it immediately, taken 3 years ago, in a refugee camp outside Luzon. I was handing a solar lantern to a kid in a silver emergency blanket. We were both smiling, muddy to the knees. My signature was on the bottom corner. I'd mailed that exact photo home. And now it was crumpled, faded, and hidden behind strangers. I stood there for a long minute, frame in hand. Then I walked into the kitchen, where my mother was already pouring coffee. "Morning," she said, without looking up. "There's creamer in the fridge." I held up the frame. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to her mug. What's that? You tell me. Oh, she said, as if seeing it for the first time. That was on the wall, but I took it down, just refreshing the decor. Refreshing? Well, the photo was intense. With the tarp tents and mud. It didn't go with the rest of the layout. It wasn't supposed to match the color palette, I said. It was supposed to represent reality. She sipped her coffee. I didn't throw it away. I placed the frame on the table. That's not the defense you think it is. She didn't answer, just walked over to the fridge, her robe brushing my arm as she passed. I left the kitchen before I said something I'd regret. Back in the living room, Megan had started a video call. She was pacing in the den, her voice bouncing off the walls. Yes, the magazine confirmed they'll be covering the gala. They want a quote from me about legacy and architecture. She spotted me and waved the way people do when they don't want to talk. Then, louder, into her phone. It's going to be such an honor. I mean, they're naming the award after Mom. I raised an eyebrow. Megan ended the call, then turned to me. You heard? Bits and pieces. She beamed. The Regional Civic Network is honoring me next month. Real Estate Impact Award. There's going to be a full ceremony downtown. I'll be on the cover of their spring edition. That's great. You should come, she added quickly. If you wear something nice, but not flashy, don't distract. I stared at her. Distract from what? From the focus, she said, like it was obvious. It's a local celebration, you know? Keep it polished. I didn't reply. I mean, she continued, we can't have UN war zone drama pulling attention. You understand. This time, I didn't bother hiding the look on my face. She pivoted fast. I just meant, your work is amazing, Rachel. But this is kind of my space. I gave a tight nod and walked away. Back upstairs, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my laptop. That's when I saw it. An encrypted message flagged high priority from an old UN security liaison. Subject line, RE:quadra -activity logged period. I clicked. Inside was one line. Quadra wasn't an accident. They're reopening the case. Your name's all over the directive. Watch your back. My stomach dropped. I reread it 3 times. Then sat frozen, laptop on my knees, cold air creeping in from the cracked window. The Quadra directive was my most controversial move, an evacuation order issued without full approval, based on raw seismic data and a gut feeling. The decision had saved lives, but it had also ruffled powerful feathers, private investors, contractors, corporate energy lobbies. The case was closed, or so I thought. Now it was back, and someone wanted to make me the center of it. Downstairs, Megan was laughing with my dad. I heard the clink of wine glasses. My mother had already moved on to rearranging coasters. They had erased me from their walls, and now someone was trying to erase me from history. I closed the laptop and whispered to no one. Okay, let's see how this goes. It was the kind of venue Megan lived for. Glass chandeliers, custom florals, those weird tiny appetizers that taste like foam. Her award gala was being held in an old bank-turned-event hall downtown, complete with marble columns and valet parking. I showed up early because I didn't trust myself to walk in late and not bolt. No one greeted me. There were name tags neatly arranged on a white linen table. I searched for mine. Nothing. I flipped through all of them twice before a 20-something hostess walked over with a stiff smile. Hi, can I help you find someone? I'm just looking for my name tag. Are you part of the event staff? I blinked. Number, I'm Megan Elwin's sister. She hesitated. Oh, maybe just grab a blank tag and write your name in. She handed me a Sharpie like she was doing me a favor. I took the sticker, scribbled Rachel Elwin, and stuck it to my chest. My table was in the back, literally the farthest one from the stage, near the catering exit. I sat with a group of strangers, a guy from the planning commission, someone's PR assistant, and a woman who thought I was there to pass out flyers. I tried to smile, tried to breathe. Across the room, Megan floated like royalty. Hair perfect, dress flawless, makeup airbrushed within an inch of her humanity. Every time she turned her head, the room seemed to pivot with her. My mother and father were seated front and center, of course, holding champagne glasses like props. Dinner started. The salads were made of greens I couldn't name. I picked at mine while speeches began. Glowing introductions about Megan's innovation, her leadership, her transformative design vision for livable neighborhoods. Then she took the stage. Megan adjusted the mic like she'd practiced it a dozen times. Thank you, she began. It's such an honor to be here tonight. surrounded by peers, mentors, and family. I've always believed in building not just homes, but hope. Applause. She went on about sustainability, urban synergy, and legacy-driven work. Then came the story. She smiled. When I was young, I used to build little houses out of blocks. I'd line them up perfectly, every street, every roof, and if someone knocked them down, I'd rebuild. My sister, she was the reckless one, used to call me obsessive. Polite laughter from the crowd. She once told me, "You can't control earthquakes, Meg." And I told her, "No, but you can control what you build afterward." That line has stayed with me. More laughter, nods. She was charming, poised, brilliant. Using my own words as a punchline to make herself look visionary. I didn't flinch. When the applause ended, the lights dimmed slightly and servers brought out dessert. My table got cold tiramisu and the last of the lukewarm coffee. I hadn't said a word in over an hour. Then, just as I was about to leave, a voice whispered behind me, "She really said that about the blocks?" I turned. Ambassador Surov stood there in a charcoal suit. Same as always, calm, focused, impossible to ignore. "She did," I said, back when I still thought gravity was optional. He smiled. "Good line. I'll have to borrow it." Then he stepped forward, into the light, and did something I didn't expect. He walked to the mic. No one had introduced him. He wasn't listed on the program. But when a UN senior official takes the stage, people listen. "Apologies," he said smoothly, "for the brief interruption. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge someone in the room tonight. Someone whose leadership saved thousands of lives and whose work has reshaped how we respond to environmental crises worldwide." Whispers rippled. I am, of course, referring to Director Rachel Elwin. The room fell still. Every head turned. During the Quattara fault collapse, it was her directive, issued at great personal and professional risk, that enabled the evacuation of 2 entire municipalities ahead of the seismic breach. It is not an exaggeration to say she prevented a catastrophe. And she did it without a script, without applause, and without the support of those who should have known better. I kept my eyes down. My hands were shaking under the table. He turned to me. "Director Elwin, we're honored by your presence tonight. Your legacy, your real legacy, is something many of us in this room could only hope to emulate." Silence stretched thin, like glass about to shatter. Then, applause. Slow at first, then building. I didn't stand, I didn't wave. I just nodded once, barely. Ambassador Surov stepped down. Megan's expression didn't change, but the muscles around her eyes were tight. My mother's wine glass trembled slightly as she took a sip. My father looked like he'd just bit into a lemon. After that, the gala stumbled forward. People began approaching me cautiously. One woman asked if I was still doing that work abroad. A man from city council offered his card. Someone else asked what I thought about FEMA's new satellite systems. I kept my answers short, polite. Megan never looked at me again. At the end of the night, as guests began filtering out into the valet line and the leftover tiramisu started to melt, I slipped out the side door. I didn't need to stay for more speeches. I didn't need to toast anyone. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. But more than that, they didn't feel untouchable anymore. The next morning, I was still in bed when my phone buzzed. Once, then again. I rolled over and saw the sender, an unknown number with an encrypted signature. That alone was enough to make my stomach clench. I sat up, heart already pounding, and tapped the message open. "A file has surfaced accusing you of negligence during Quattara. It's being shared with media outlets and donors. It's a hit piece. Not random, not sloppy, intentional. A.L." A.L. I hadn't heard from Evelyn in years. We used to work together. She was a data analyst in the UN Disaster Modeling Division before she burned out and disappeared into the world of whistleblower forums and encrypted podcasts. But she always knew where the digital bodies were buried. I called her immediately. She picked up on the third ring. "Rachel," she said. Her voice was tired. "You got the message?" I did. "What the hell is going on?" She sighed. "Someone leaked a file. Claims you ignored structural warnings and rushed the evacuation for PR optics. It's garbage, obviously, but it's been packaged to look official. UN headers, incident codes, a fake internal memo. Someone wants to smear you." My mind raced. Where did it come from? I traced the document back to a shared archive accessed last month by a dormant UN server cluster, one that was synced briefly to a corporate endpoint. "Whose endpoint?" She hesitated. "Your sister's company tablet. The one she used when she interned with Sterling Resources during her last year of graduate school. I blinked. Megan, Ava's voice softened. I didn't want to believe it either, but the tablet's device ID is in the metadata trail. The archive was accessed while it was connected to a legacy Sterling network, one that was compromised during a minor breach 6 months ago. That's when the file duplication happened. So either Megan leaked it, I said slowly, or someone used her device to do it. She wasn't hacked, Ava said. The access wasn't remote, it was manual. Whoever did it had the tablet in hand. I felt my face go cold. I didn't even remember Megan keeping that tablet. She used it during college for a summer project she barely finished. I assumed she tossed it years ago, but if she left it active, connected to old servers, and if she handed it off to someone, I need to talk to her, I said. Ava paused. Just be careful, Rachel. This isn't just sibling jealousy anymore. This is someone rewriting history to bury the truth. And you're the truth. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. Then I drove straight to Megan's condo. She answered the door in yoga pants and a satin hair wrap, clearly mid-morning routine. She looked surprised to see me. Rachel, she said, you okay? I need to talk to you, now. She stepped aside without arguing. We sat at her breakfast bar, 2 mugs of untouched tea between us. I didn't dance around it. There's a file being circulated about Quadra. It's fake. It says I mishandled the evacuation. Ava traced the source, back to your old company tablet. Megan blinked, slowly. That tablet, she said, I haven't used it in years. But you kept it. She hesitated. It's probably in storage. Why? Because it was still synced to Sterling's old archive. Someone used it to pull incident files from my directive folder. They forged a memo with your access trail in the metadata. Her face changed, just a flicker, like a mask slipping. Rachel, she started. Was it you? She opened her mouth, closed it. Then she whispered, Not exactly. My stomach dropped. I didn't mean for it to go public, she said quickly. I thought they'd just look at it internally, maybe flag it, that's all. You gave them access, I said. Why? Megan's shoulders tightened. Her voice was low and brittle. Because you always got the storybook. You got the heroic narratives, the documentaries, the photo ops. And me? I get called Megan Elwin, sister of the UN director. I just wanted something that wasn't yours. You tried to smear my name. I didn't think it would work, she cried. I thought they'd dismiss it. I just wanted to matter. I sat there, stunned. Not angry, not even hurt, just hollow. You don't matter more by making me less, I said quietly. Megan looked away. Her hands trembled on the marble counter. I didn't want it to go this far. Well, I said, rising to my feet. It has. And now we both have to live with what you did. I walked to the door. Rachel, she said, standing. I stopped, hand on the knob. I didn't erase you, she said softly. I just thought maybe people would finally look at me. I turned my head. They did, I said. Just not the way you hoped. Then I walked out, not knowing what would come next, but knowing finally who was standing behind me with the match while the smoke rose. It took Ava and me 2 days to pinpoint the physical location, a restricted access server hub buried under the old East Point Research Annex, technically inactive since Sterling Resources acquisition 2 years ago. But the digital fingerprint on the forged Quadra file matched a sequence pattern last seen in their backup logs. That meant one thing. The original directive memo, my real one, might still exist, somewhere deep in that archive. The proof? We needed it. The building looked abandoned from the outside, gutted lobby, no signage. But Ava, as always, came prepared, spoofed badge access, a borrowed maintenance code, and a roll of black electrical tape in her bag just in case. I forgot how much I missed breaking into corporate lies, she muttered, prying open the side panel near the freight entrance. Inside, the air was cold and metallic. The hallway lights flickered half-powered, and the only sounds were the low thrum of dormant servers and our footsteps echoing on the concrete. We reached the lower level, 3 floors underground, where the archive servers were still powered but largely forgotten. Sterling had left them connected for insurance reasons, probably hoping no one would care enough to notice. Here, Ava said, pointing to one of the old drives. This machine was used to batch transfer all directive logs from international ops before the transition. If the Quadra memo was ever saved officially, it'll be here. She plugged in a slim tablet, fingers flying. Screens blinked to life. For 5 minutes, we stood in silence as data blocks spilled across the interface. And then, there it was, a labeled audio file, QTR-DIR-013-R. ELWYN-flagged. Ava clicked play. The voice was unmistakable. Vincent Delavin, then Vice President of Strategic Engineering at Sterling Resources. If she won't sign off, override it. I don't care if her data says there's a subfault beneath the village. We already started prepping the drill rig. You delay this, we lose the contract. I'll take full responsibility. Just bury her objection in the redundancy log. My heart stopped. Ava looked at me. That's your smoking gun. He overruled my call. He knew the risk. He made the choice that led to the collapse, not me. My breath shook as I whispered, download it. Back up everything. We cloned the file to 3 secure drives and started logging the rest of the directive trail. Timestamps, review emails, sensor reports. All of it painted the same story. I flagged the danger. Sterling ignored it. We had everything we needed to expose the truth. But that was the last moment I felt safe. When I woke the next morning, the files were gone. My tablet wouldn't boot. Ava's backup drive was wiped. The tertiary copy, which we had stored on an encrypted cloud partition, was gone. Erased. Not just deleted, scrubbed. As if it had never existed. In its place, a single image file, no message. Just a white screen with one crude, blocky symbol in red. A snake biting its own tail. I knew it immediately. It was the insignia of Warden 12, a corporate security contractor that had allegedly been shut down after a UN audit revealed ethics violations. Only they hadn't been shut down. They'd just gone dark. I tried calling Ava, no answer. I texted, nothing. I drove by her apartment. Her car was gone. No sign of struggle, no sign of anything. She had vanished. Just like that. I returned to my apartment, locked every door, and sat on the floor with my back against the wall. For the first time since this all started, I felt truly alone. They weren't just protecting a corporation. They were protecting a myth. And they were willing to erase anyone who threatened it. I still had fragments, email headers, access logs, Ava's trace report. Enough to suggest what we'd found, but not enough to prove it. Not alone, which meant I had to make a choice. I grabbed my keys, drove across town, stood in front of a familiar townhouse, and rang the doorbell. It opened slowly. Megan stood in the doorway, barefoot, mascara faded. She didn't speak. Neither did I. I just held up what little I had left. I can't fight this alone, I said, and you owe me. She didn't argue. She stepped aside, let me in. We both knew the stakes now. The erasure wasn't just professional, it was personal. And the only way out was through. Megan showed up at my door the next morning without texting first. That alone told me something had shifted. She was dressed differently. No blazer, no curated accessories, no soft neutral tones. Just jeans, an old hoodie from college, and a laptop case under her arm. Her eyes were red, but not from crying. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside. She walked past me and set the laptop down on my kitchen table. For a second, she didn't speak. Just opened the screen, pulled up a folder, and turned it toward me. It was a batch of system logs. "You asked if I erased you," she said. "I didn't just leak your name, but I did give access. I wanted them to notice me. Sterling, the board, the PR teams. I thought maybe they'd bring me in. Maybe I'd be more than just the other Elwyn." I didn't speak. "But what they really wanted was to erase you." She tapped the screen. "This is the trace log from the moment they deleted your files. Time-stamped, geo-stamped, tagged under an admin account listed as dormant. They covered their tracks, but they missed one thing." She clicked again, brought up a security audit line from the server. The deletion command originated from a private terminal used by Delavin. He purged the Quadra files at 2:16 a.m., then masked it using an old Warden 12 cloak protocol. I stared at her. "You kept this?" "No," she said. "I downloaded it from my tablet last night. I shouldn't have kept the device connected to their systems, but I did. It auto-synced when the logs updated. I only found out because I got flagged for exceeding a data quota. They didn't think anyone still had access." She sat back. "I know it's not enough to bring the whole thing down, but it proves who destroyed the evidence. And that's something." I nodded slowly. My mind was already racing ahead. Chain of custody, metadata integrity, independent verification. She watched me. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to fix what I helped break. And how do you plan to do that? She swallowed hard. They're holding a closed-door environmental summit next week in Vancouver. Private invites, corporate backers, global reps. Delvin's scheduled to speak about restorative drilling initiatives. I raised an eyebrow. He'll be surrounded by press, but not officially. No one's allowed to record inside. No cameras, no transcripts. Unless someone does, I said. She nodded. I'll go. I'm on the guest list. Still have contacts from my Sterling internship. I'll wear a mic, get him talking. If he confirms anything on record, even offhand, it could be enough. I hesitated. Megan, I said, if they find out, I know, she cut in. They'll erase me too. Silence. Then she added, but I'd rather go down doing the right thing than keep standing on the wrong side of the silence. I studied her. For once, she didn't look like she was performing. She looked real. Terrified. But real. All right, I said. We do this together. I called Ambassador Surov that night. He didn't ask questions, just said, send me everything. I'll get the tech scrubbed and verified on our end. If she gets a recording, I'll make sure it gets to the right hands. We laid out the plan. Gear, extraction points, fail-safes. Megan would go in with a covert device, mic'd through a pendant, backup recorder in her clutch, signal routing through an encrypted relay we'd both monitor live. If she got the confession, we'd pull her immediately. She didn't ask for recognition, didn't ask to share the stage. She just said, let me do this. For once, she wasn't trying to rewrite the narrative. She was trying to tell the truth. And I was finally willing to let her. The Vancouver summit was held at a resort just north of the city, the kind of place with glass walls and minimalist everything, pure silence except for the occasional clink of crystal glassware. Security was tight. No press badges, no cameras, no phones allowed past the lobby checkpoint. But Megan got through. She wore a deep green sheath dress and a gold pendant, the one with the hidden mic tucked beneath the clasp. Her clutch held the backup recorder. I watched her pass through the security scan via a live relay from Surov's tech team. No one questioned her. She walked in like she belonged, like she wasn't carrying the weight of both our reputations inside her purse. From my hotel room 2 miles away, I monitored the feed through an encrypted portal. Audio only. Ava had taught me how to set it up. I wondered where she was now, if she was watching too. The first 15 minutes were nothing but polite small talk, glass clinking, and the sound of people adjusting in uncomfortable chairs. Then Megan's voice came through, clear and calm. Mr. Delavin, she said, that was an excellent presentation. A pause, a man's voice, smooth, practiced. Please call me Vincent. She laughed. You really believe this model of restorative drilling is safe for repopulated areas? Absolutely, he replied. We've fine-tuned the risk calculations. Besides, most of those fears come from old incidents, outdated protocols. Like Quatera? Silence, then a quiet chuckle. Now that was a PR disaster, Delavin said. But you know how these things go. We cleaned it up. Didn't the directive recommend delaying? Another pause. Sure, but directives come from scientists. We have to balance that with business realities. And if there's a village sitting on a hidden fault line, more laughter, louder this time. I don't care if there's a village above it, drill anyway. That's what I said then. And I'd say it again. The land's worth more than sentiment. I froze. Megan didn't miss a beat. Didn't that directive come from Rachel Elwyn? She tried to stop it, Delavin said. Would have cost us millions. She didn't understand what was at stake. We couldn't let a do-gooder slow things down. That was it. The sentence hung there, cold, flat, final. In the control panel window, a waveform spiked, Surov's signal to confirm capture. The recording was safe. Inside the summit hall, someone must have tipped off the sound techs. A second later, the house audio system popped, buzzed, then switched channels. Suddenly, every speaker in the room, every embedded system, every tiny wall-mounted unit, began playing the recording back. Loud, crystal clear. I don't care if there's a village above it, drill anyway. Gasps echoed, chairs scraped. People turned, looked at Delavin. Security moved toward the stage. What is this? He barked. Turn that off. Who played that? But no one answered, because the sound was coming from the inside. A timed sync, preloaded into the building's own AV system, triggered by the backup relay. Delavin stood there, red-faced and furious, while his own words filled the room again and again. Within seconds, the summit moderator announced an emergency adjournment. Sterling's PR head bolted for the hallway. A UN legal rep rushed to the front. Delavan was surrounded. Two plainclothes security officers, private but clearly sanctioned, stepped forward. "Mr. Delavan," one of them said calmly, "you'll need to come with us." "I didn't authorize this," he snapped. "No," the officer replied, "but someone did." They escorted him out through a side door. Inside the hall, murmurs exploded. Phones were buzzing again. Someone must have found a way to leak the feed. Reporters were suddenly everywhere. Even without video, the quote alone was enough to detonate the entire summit. And in the corner, standing quietly near the bar, was Megan. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just turned, collected her clutch, and walked out. Back in the hotel room, I sat with my hands shaking. It was over. The lie had cracked open in front of the very people who once helped cement it. Board members, donors, industry reps, UN observers. The truth had finally spoken, through the mic of the one person who used to silence it. Later that night, Megan and I sat side by side on a bench near the harbor, wrapped in quiet. She didn't ask for credit. I didn't offer absolution. We just sat there as the wind moved across the bay. For the first time in years, we weren't opponents. We were something closer to equals. 2 weeks after the summit, I got the offer in writing. The UN wanted me back. Not just as a field coordinator, this time as Director of Global Planning and Ethics, with expanded oversight, a seat on the executive board, and a compensation package that would have made my younger self choke. I read the email twice, then closed it. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to the window of my apartment and watched the drizzle roll down the glass. Portland looked like itself again. Gray skies, quiet streets, and the ever-present hum of distant traffic. It felt small compared to the places I'd worked, but it felt like mine. The next day, I sent my own offer back. I'd be declining the role. Instead, I accepted a teaching position at a state university, a program for environmental planners and ethics officers. A chance to pass on what I'd learned, what I almost lost. I didn't want power, I wanted peace. Megan, for her part, left her job too. No public statement, no headlines, just a quiet resignation sent by email. She joined an independent environmental safety review board, a small nonprofit that audits corporate development claims. She said it felt good to actually question things instead of spin them. We didn't make a big deal out of it. We didn't need to. A few Sundays later, we drove up together to visit our parents. I hadn't been back since the gala. I expected awkwardness, tension, but the house was calm. My mother greeted us at the door with her usual cautious smile. My father offered to put coffee on. Megan went straight to the living room. And there, on the shelf above the fireplace, sat a row of updated frames. Megan's award night was there, of course. Her in the green dress, arms mid-applause. But beside it was something new. A photo of me taken during the Quadra effort. Not the one from the muddy village, but one I didn't even know existed. I was standing beside a helicopter, helmet under my arm, looking down at a map surrounded by field officers. The frame was simple, no gold, no gloss. But it was there. No one said anything, no grand apologies, no teary-eyed monologues about how wrong they were. And somehow, that was better. We stayed for lunch. It wasn't perfect. My mother still flinched when I brought up Ava. My father still called my teaching job semi-retirement. But they listened when I spoke. They asked about my students. They didn't try to change the subject. When Megan and I got up to leave, our mother hugged us both. Same embrace, same words. "Take care of yourselves, girls." Outside, as we reached the car, Megan stopped and turned to me. "You ever think we'd get here?" she asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm glad we did." She smiled, not wide, just enough. We drove back without music, just the sound of tires on wet pavement and the occasional raindrop hitting the windshield. It wasn't some cinematic ending, no ribbon-cutting ceremony, no grand parade for the truth. Just a seat at the table, just a photo on the wall, just belonging finally, without having to prove a thing.